This podcast is powered by the pros at Paschal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPaschal.com.
I appreciate all the questions and thoughts and condolences of everybody, and but I kind of said what I said in there earlier, so I hope that was enough, and everybody got what they would need from that area, and we can keep moving as Ole Miss head coach, and here to answer questions with that and do my job.
Okay.
Thank you.
Front row.
Hey, Coach.
Hi.
Sorry about your dad.
Thank you.
AP Stedham, AP and Kelly, as we see it, syndicated radio. Coach, what makes you excited about your team on offense, defense, and special teams, and what needs to be done for Ole Miss to compete against the top echelon teams?
Well, I'm all areas. I mean, I don't sound coach speak, but I really am excited about all areas because either we have players we're familiar with coming back that have done really well, or we've added players in those areas that have performed well at other places. So that's an exciting thing to have. Every year you don't have that. Every coach gets up here and says it, but a lot of years they don't. And so it's exciting to have that type of roster. Now, there's plenty of those rosters over years in all sports. Professionally in college doesn't mean you're going to win. Doesn't mean you're going to have, an elite team. There's a lot of work to do with that, but I'm excited, as I said in there, about, we added length, and that was an issue in some matchups, really over the last few years, in my opinion. And so I'm excited about that, but we have so much work to do within the team, on the field, and in the locker room, because it's a lot of work to gel them together. Otherwise, every good preseason ranking would mean something, which it doesn't as you look at the end, and every top 5 portal team, would be a top 5 team. That certainly is not the case. So to me, that shows you there's a lot of other stuff besides that. Yeah, I think, when I talked about length, I think that gives us, where it doesn't mean you're going to win, but we look more like them, at least, in warm-ups. I don't know if I'm in charge of that.
Front row.
Coach Eric Bailey with the Tulsa World. Can you talk about Brent Venables is entering his 3rd year at Oklahoma. Can you talk about the importance of building a program and how important year 3 and year 4 is when you are developing your program, your coaching style?
Well, I don't know about his staff. Well, I do know he lost Levy, so I know that part. But a lot of times, one of the good parts of getting, into year 3 or year 4, and you just have some of the same coaches around, and even the people in the whole building that understand how you want things done. And a lot of times in the first 2 years, you're kind of always scrambling to get everybody on the same page. And so I think as that goes, that helps in that, and it certainly helps if your coaches happen to stay around. I think that, I don't know this, I should, but I feel like this is the first year we've actually had all 3 coordinators returning for a second season. So that helps.
On the aisle, and then pass it back.
Hey, Coach Bob Ballou, CBS Austin. I know you just spoke to the Texas roster a little bit, what Sark's building. What's impressed you about what he's built as they head into the SEC, but also maybe for Sark specific, what makes him so unique in this business?
I think that Sark has really good balance, and I guess maybe in the video game things, since I keep hearing about the video game, like as you rank different areas and stuff, and some coaches are, you'd put these numbers by them, 99, whatever, in these certain areas, they might have lower numbers in these. I think he has really good balance where if you looked at him as a coach, like you do kind of teams, if that makes sense, like there's no weakness. I think he has really good player relations. I think he hires really well and evaluates coaches in that process really well, and he recruits great. So, and he's really innovative offensively. So I would say when I look at him, he has really great balance.
Second row.
Lane, Ralph Russo from AP. With the new rules regarding coaching staffs and all that's gone into over the years, resources in coaching staffs and staffs in general getting bigger, and now analysts and things along those lines. Now you have to allocate some money to players. How do you, I'm sure you're going to have a conversation with your AD about this, but how do you balance that? Are you thinking more along the lines of like, well, maybe we don't have to spend as much on that analyst because if it's coming out of the player pool? Is that something that's going to have to go into your thinking?
Yeah, it's going to. That hasn't happened yet. So there's going to be a lot of that. You're going to put a lot of thought into that. To me, that's just like when the portal started, or more portal windows, and then multiple transfers. Like, I think we've done a good job of putting a lot of thought into how we do things in different areas, and that'll be one. And I think one of the things we've done well is we say don't think outside the box, create a new box. And I think we've done that in some areas, whether it's been over the years offensively and with the portal. So I just think we'll take all that in, and we certainly won't just do what seems to be the good thing. We'll really figure it out and research, and there's not really analytics on that yet, but I can tell you my analytics in my head will tell me that if you got a budget and you've got to, like, this is the pot, which I don't know that it necessarily is, because you still got a lot of work to do. Is our collective still alive and our donors still alive outside of that? But if it really was like true salary cap that you said is a salary cap for players and coaches, which would be unique because professional sports obviously just the players, I can tell you my first reaction would be move to the players. That's not to be nice because I'm a player's coach. That's because the players matter more than the coaches, and more analysts and more outside linebacker coaches and slot receiver coaches and all these names that people come up with and stuff. I'm the first to tell you you can have these great schemes and draw all this stuff, but players matter.
Second row.
Coach, in the big room, you talked about losing some rivalries and with this new system, and obviously you've gained a reputation of being fun to follow on social media. There seemed to be some back and forth last year with some of your tweets towards Auburn, where there was Bruce Pearl losing a basketball game, or Hugh Freeze and the Derek Nix situation. I'm just wondering if that's just good-natured rivalry, if there's an underlying issue there that maybe we don't know about.
No, I think that's just me being me, and I kind of always thought, not that I'm right, because most people don't do this, that Twitter, you just be yourself. Like, I don't do much coach speak, but I certainly don't on Twitter. And so, like, I was always like, it'd be kind of cool to just be a normal fan and be able to say this and retweet this if you see it, and not really overthink, well, if I retweet this, you're going to think this, and you're going to think this, and you're going to think this, and then, well, my donor's going to think this, well, then that future AD is going to think that, which is a lot of the way coaches think. And I just don't do that. So, I'll say this, since you mentioned Hugh, I really am appreciative of a message he sent me that was really meaningful in the last few days. That was really, really neat. So I'm very grateful for that.
Second row.
Hey, Lane, Brett McMurphy with Action Network. I have a two-parter, so I'll just ask one at a time. What kind of impact did it have on your life and your career when Nick Saban brought you to Alabama?
Wow, it was huge. I mean, I mentioned it in there, and seeing him today, and obviously in different roles and everything, but he came in, and after I had the first initial media, I was back there, and he came and found me, and it's really cool, a really neat moment, and so I'm very appreciative to him those 3 years, and really him taking a chance on me, not just, okay, what did I learn when I got there, which is all over our program, whether that's coaches hired, former players hired, principals, process over outcome, all kinds of things are all over our program from coach. But the opportunity that he gave me to come there, when I feel like a lot of people wouldn't, because it was controversial. and I give him credit. I've always said this about him, for an old school coach, he is always, which is why to me he was so good for so long in all this movement of college football, because most kind of old school coaches didn't evolve and they weren't willing to change. They weren't really to take risk, and I think he did that with me, and did that with offensive structure and change. And many defensive coaches that are old school that did as long as he did that would say, I'm going to go change offense. I can't stand this RPO and eventual tempo stuff. Like, I can't stand this because it's so hard to deal with. You would think most coaches would be like, okay, I want that, and I'm going to go do that. They rarely didn't. And as you study over time, that's why a lot of them didn't succeed because of that. And he's always evolved, and even though in a lot of ways he's conservative and old school, he evolves and takes risks.
With Coach Saban now retired, you mentioned he took a chance. Do you think there are other coaches now that will take chances on some guys, maybe that other people might not want to take a chance? And who are those guys, do you think?
I do think that what Coach did with a lot of coaches in taking, fired head coaches, or maybe they had an off-field issue, some of them, and taking them, and I was fortunate to be a coordinator. A lot of those times they've been analyst roles over the years, to kind of get them back in. And I think people like to copy success. And I think over time, people have been more apt to do that because they saw Alabama succeed, but then they saw those coaches go on to succeed other places, and then they kind of pay it back. And I think we, whatever that group is of coaches, there's a lot of them, head coaches now from Coach. I think if you look at them, they do that. We do that. We've got a couple, we just added in the last, 5 months, 2 former head coaches, an SEC head coach and an NFL head coach. Not that they had any issues, I'm not saying that, but that model that he did, which was kind of unique.
Final 2 questions here on the aisle and then in the back row.
Tyler Shaw with KBTX and College Station. Lane, do you like the expanded now, going to the 12-team playoff format, and then being in this league with, and adding Texas and Oklahoma? Do you feel like being in the SEC kind of helps your team's chances of, being one of the top 12 teams?
I think the first thing I do like, first question, I do like for college football, the 12-team, that there's 12 teams. I do think that's really exciting at the end of the year for more teams, and we've seen in other sports how awesome tournaments are. So I do like that. I don't know necessarily, and I think it would take a couple years to find out, does adding the 2 teams to the SEC and making the super conference like it did mean that you're going to be more apt to get in, especially for those teams? I don't know that. There's way too many variables in the current system to me to be able to say that, because you don't have a top 12 system. You have a system that a group of 5 teams is going to get in, and they may not even be ranked. Maybe 25th or something. Okay, they're certainly not going to be ranked in the top 12. And you could have one of these other conferences have a conference champ. I wouldn't think it would ever happen in the SEC, but a conference champ that isn't in the top 12 that's going to jump. So now you may have 11 and 12. These two, the 11th and 12th ranked teams in the country aren't getting in. They're going to get jumped by teams way down here. So I think you do have some issues there where you can't say, oh, just being in this conference is going to help you because of that.
Final question.
Bradley Davis, WAPT Sports in Jackson, Mississippi. Lane, this time last year, you and your team were talking about how the fading in 2022 at the end of the season, and kind of attributed that in part to having a whole new team in this free agency, as you call it. What were you able to change to overcome that in 2023, and do you think you've established a blueprint for this new age with all these new players coming in every year?
Yeah, I think part of that's being fortunate. You have games come down to the end and the ball goes this way and the kick doesn't go in versus goes in, or it's blocked versus doesn't. So I'm the first one to say, okay, you got to look at the whole thing versus just, oh, we did this great job, so now we were great because we blocked the kick and it didn't go in and we lose the game, or the year before, okay, we don't know what we're doing and we got to change everything, but yet I think we're 8 or 9-1 with the ball inside the 20-yard line to beat Alabama, and we don't score, So there's a lot that goes into that, but I do look back and I say I don't think that we had a phenomenal culture, which is my responsibility as the head coach, to weather when that Alabama game went bad and then all of a sudden fall off. And I think that's a portal issue, just like it is in sometimes in professional it's a heavy free agency issue. They haven't been there long. In college, they didn't really initially pick them. NFL is different because they got picked. So they didn't initially pick them, so maybe now why are they going to the places they're going? So a lot goes into that, and I think last year we got some really good breaks in the games too, but that was a really good culture last year of players that were there for the right reasons.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.